From the point of view of investors, from the point of view of the government in large part, there is no housing crisis. Property prices are increasing. The situation of the banks, which is the chief concern of the government, is getting better. So all the indicators from their point of view are positive. The people who have the housing crisis are us, tenants, homeless people. And until we turn that housing crisis into a political crisis, the government isn't going to care.
It's never been this bad. I mean, in the history of the state, it's never been this bad. People did live in appalling tenement accommodation back in the 30s and the 40s, but they had a roof over their head.
It was the first letter we got on the 19th of December. Like the 19th of December, you know, just when I think about it, you know, saying about the rents going up and the, you know, for a one bedroom, we were paying 900, they were going up to 1300, you know, which, you know, that's a big shock.
We decided to try and meet them somewhere in the middle and offer 25%. Like if the spirit of the law were to be respected, we'd only really been committed to a 4% increase. And we sat and waited for a reply, and no reply came, and no reply came.
They got the office, didn't even acknowledge us. You know, they never came back to us with anything. So
when PwC withdrew their notice of rent increase, they came in, they did some bits of work here and there, and then nothing happened for months. 20th of July, on Friday evening, we each got a letter to say that we were given notice of termination of tenancy.
Our apartment one, St Helens Court, Dunleary, will terminate on Monday the 4th of September. That letter we got on the 20th of July. So it's just crazy. I mean, they're giving you a month to get out. I mean, you just cannot find anywhere within a month.
But the reason given was that substantial renovation work had to be undertaken that required us to vacate the properties. Now, what struck us as dubious was that previously, in the spring of 2017, at the start of the year, PwC were quite happy to ask for a 70% increase, with us staying in the apartments with no work being done. And yet now, the apartments needed so much work done that we had to move out.
We know that in Ireland, tenants have extremely limited rights when it comes to security of tenure. That makes it very easy for landlords to evict people. And then you have rent increases, like on average we have 60% rent increases in Dublin over the last 5 years, and during that same period wage increases have been around 1 or 2%. We've had people with literally holes in the wall, no windows, like the physical window missing, trees going out of roofs, fire hazards, faulty electricity, chronic damp. The worst stories are people who are becoming homeless, who are being evicted, who are facing potential family breakdown because their housing situation is falling apart.
We were here like 8 years. I tried to be honest and I tried to be good tenant. I paid the rent. I have been paying 750 per month right up to the July of this year. Now they tell me I owe them 4,325 euro. Here's the recent letter what I got. You have failed to pay rent in accordance with your obligation under the Residential Tenancies Act. As of today, the 9th of the August 2017, you owe rent areas of 4,325 euro. If you fail to pay this rent area within 14 days, I'm entitled to terminate your tenancy by serving a notice of termination on you. I think it's really ridiculous to backdate money. I've seen myself 5 apartments which just get empty day by day. I think then the people which they live in here, they move out and the people are just disappear from around. I see agents walking around, looking in the window and make us more stressful. Because I don't know when somebody gonna come and knock to my door and tell me, listen, there you go.
Well, the sooner you get your full application into me, the sooner I can put it to the landlord. They want somebody in quickly, so what's your situation?
Just me and the baby.
And you're working as well?
I work, yeah.
We manage it, so
Right.
any issues you have or anything like that, you would come to us. And
Okay.
they're very good landlords. They're very good.
Right,
If you have
okay.
issues, they'll sort them out straight away.
Ireland has become extremely attractive for investors in the rental sector, and there's kind of two parts to that story. The government has created a situation which is very attractive for international funds to come into Ireland to acquire properties cheaply and pay very little tax. So while we were giving the banks 64 billion euro and guarantees and NAMA and everything else, we were cutting funding to social housing by between 80 to 90%. And a part of the prioritisation of the financial system has been a drive on the part of government to sell bad debt and devalued property to international investors. On the other end of that spectrum, you've a scenario where it's increasingly difficult, it has been very difficult for people to get mortgages, where very little housing is being built. The private market cannot deliver an adequate amount of housing, and at the same time social housing, basically output in social housing has come to a complete standstill. From an investor, so-called investor or vulture funds point of view, you have a government who's willing to bend over backwards to facilitate you. You have a housing market which is in complete chaos, and you have one of the worst regulated rental sectors in Europe. So in that context, tenants are basically sitting ducks.
Today, most of those people becoming newly homeless are coming from the private rented sector, being evicted either because they can't afford the escalating rents, or because the landlord says they're selling the house or renovating the house. So the private rented sector is the primary contributor to the problem of homelessness in Ireland today.
As a tenants with no rights, they show us then we are nobody. We are just another number. We are not human for them. Terrified to stay homeless. This is the most thing which comes to my head now, because I am the single mother, and they know the situation because I explained to them. Just as a human, I was looking for understanding, which wasn't given to me at all.
There's families here in one bedroom with 2 kids. You know, there's families here, like there's one family here with 3 kids in one bedroom, right? And they are saving for mortgages, trying to get a mortgage, you know, and they're in a catch-22, they can't get a mortgage. So these people have nowhere to go. I mean, they're here years, their kids have been brought up here, grown up here, went to local schools here. I don't know what's going to happen here. There's loopholes in the regulation, but it's working in favour of these people because they know the ways around it. And there's so much money involved, and they're getting around it. Years ago, to me, a landlord had a tenant. They had a tenant, were paying every month and no hassle. They were loving tenants, you know. Well, it's actually gone the other way now. The landlords don't want us in these. They don't want tenants long term. They want them in for a year or 2, get them out, jack up the rent. That's what they want. And in the crisis we're in now on houses, and I mean, what do people do? I mean, this is going to make more and more people homeless, unless the government step in and do something. This is coming to a point, it's a boiling point now at this stage. You know, we've no option but to fight this all the way.
One of the key lessons from looking at housing markets across the world is that the private housing market is really bad at delivering housing of any kind of quality to people on low and moderate incomes in particular. In Ireland in particular, we have a private market which is dysfunctional, which is recovering from a crisis, and therefore relying on the private market, which is the main plank of the current government strategy, is a recipe for this housing crisis to deepen and to last for decades.
We are the 14th wealthiest country in the world, and yet we cannot even put a roof over everybody's head. During the famine, families were put out in the street because they couldn't afford to pay the rents, because the crops had failed. Today we have families being put out on the street because they can't afford to pay the rent.